So,
He's not listed to me.
Martha wants me to pass those out.
okay, we're gonna call a meeting to order. Roll call, Buddy, Marvin, and I here. Sandy and Martha will be here soon, I'm sure. Does anyone have anything for open forum? Okay. We need to approve the minutes of the December 19th meeting. Buddy makes the motion to approve them. Marvin seconds it. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Okay. Okay, Andy's administrator report. Did y'all get the extra copies? Y'all get a copy of his extra one? Y'all have any questions for Andy on any of this?
I did have one minor update on the 340B pharmacy. They did reject our initial registration, which will put us into the April 1st application, which means we will be actively participating in July, not April, because of
why'd they reject it?
some of the supporting documents they claim they didn't get, which we're being told was sent, but we're going to be delayed 3 months on that.
Do you have any questions for him, Martin? Do you have anything else, Andy, that you need to add other than what we have?
The rest of it will be in the specific issues we're voting on later.
Okay. You got a copy of Stephen's report. Anyone have any questions for Stephen, or do you have anything else you want to tell us?
Don't think I got it on here, but I also got a call from an outfit that does Medicare replacement policy, kind of a middleman. I historically haven't used those things, don't like them, but if somebody got tricked into it, if I want the patient, I need to take their insurance. What this outfit does is pretty much take care of all the problems that I've had before. They give us the paperwork we need to do. So there's a $500 setup fee, and I haven't discussed this with anybody too much. I mentioned it to Andy the other day. It comes down to if I want the patient, the insurance will pay for it. That's great. But it's not like they have Medicare. We don't have a whole lot of options. So
this goes back to this Medicare replacement policy that we have not accepted in the past, but it's on our agenda.
Yes, on our agenda.
So what we'll have to do is, when we get to that, if we approve that, then I guess that will take care of the nursing home also.
Yeah, right now it's a district policy that we cannot enter into those contracts.
And I don't know if it's a problem or going to be a problem, but there is a middleman out there that might solve some of the problems I've had in the past. So hopefully that will work. And I did want to show on there where it talks about the room numbers and door tags and whatnot. This is an example. It's a picture of me holding a fish and kind of my background. We're thinking about going with something like this. These are awful big and they might be kind of crappy on the haul. These are a lot smaller, but they're harder to read. The idea is, you guys see back there, the idea is that the resident can put as much or as little information on there as they want to, but it gives us a life story on a lot of them. So we have a bad habit of going to the funeral and finding out stuff that we didn't know until the funeral. This will help prevent that. With people with dementia, can't remember what they had for lunch, but they can remember 30 years ago. This will help us communicate with them better and start a conversation like that, make them more comfortable. It won't cost too much to do, and I think everybody over there is pretty excited about it. So I'll leave these up there if y'all wanted to look at them. But basically the cost of the frame is the worst part of it, and if we go that small, it's a lot cheaper. But,
I don't know if I could read that small.
yeah, it's awful small.
Stephen, it's not a HIPAA violation?
No, that was the trick behind doing it, and I've done it before with this 8.5 by 11 size. And the questionnaire that they fill out at the bottom of it has a release, and they sign that. When they sign that, we put this together, we put a copy of it on the back. So if anybody comes in, if the HIPAA cops come in and start checking us down, we just open this up and show it to them, here it is, they gave us permission. So that was how it was done.
If your patient has dementia, you have to get a family member
Yes,
to
ma'am.
do that.
Yes, ma'am. You can learn a lot of neat stuff like that, but, we're still, if that idea doesn't fly, then we're doing some other way to make that look more attractive and more appropriate. Right now, it's just, kind of tacky. We've got numbers off your, they're made to put on the side of your mailbox, kind of nailed into the wall behind the room. Other than that, any questions on my report?
Did you get a copy of his report? Sandy needs a copy of yours.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm gonna have these put in the packet. I'm gonna come in to get it now.
But we are up to 28 patients.
Yes, ma'am. I had one come in before I started working there, and he passed away the first day I was there, and I managed to get 2 more in there since I started. I don't expect that to be a trend to get that many that close together, but I'll take them if they're out there. So hopefully they'll materialize, and we'll get them in there everything we can do.
Well, I have to say, all I'm hearing is good things about you in the nursing home.
Good. Deal. Happy to hear that. Everybody's been really kind, really accepting. It's been remarkable how happy people are to see me and how friendly everybody's being, so I'm pretty happy. And I have been immersed through the nursing department, through nursing, through dietary, housekeeping, laundry, and maintenance. And everything that I've been able to look into has been correct, at least real close. There's always something to fix, but as I said in the report, we've got a really good thing going there. All we got to do is pay for it. I haven't gotten in with the business office yet, and I haven't reviewed what we're going to have to do to get more reimbursement, but I expect that's going to flow along pretty easy. So I'm real positive, and I think it's going to work out just fine. Just a little bit of time, we'll be in the black.
Good deal. Sounds good, doesn't it? Okay, anything else for the nursing home? Okay, department heads. George, do you have anything to add to yours?
We are in the process of moving, I don't know what's in my reports, we're in the process of moving Randa to Denise's, where it used to be Denise's office down at the end. We're ready, in other words, we just gotta move the furniture, basically is all we lack. And we knocked out the wall and took out the autoclave, cause we don't use that anymore. And we have, we're working on that room, well, right now, in other words, that's why I'm so clean. But, that's what we're doing, and that gives us about another, that's gonna make a huge difference in that central supply, and then Ella's gonna move down there. And then, of course, all the other shifts throughout the hospital.
That'll give us more exam rooms.
Yeah, we're supposed to end up with six exam rooms in the clinic. Ella will move out, and then I'll go into exam room, and then Doc, he's gonna move, and then the lab's gonna move, and I've got to make all of those transitions there. But I'll just do them one at a time.
Tammy, do you have anything for your department?
Actually, I do. I was going to see if y'all had any questions about my report and Andy's and my proposal to get a part-time PT to help.
I think where we are on there is kind of waiting on this Medicare thing to really see what our reimbursement for sure is gonna be.
We did, I can't remember, she pulled some Medicare enrollments. What we're referring to, guys, is that I talked to Debbie about this yesterday, but we've got for 2 years, there's been a physical therapy cap placed on Medicare patients. At normal PTS hospitals that is a critical access we've been exempt from. effective January the 1st, CMS is looking for a way to apply those caps to critical access hospitals. The problem is they have not had a ruling on how that process will work. So what we've looked at this afternoon was pulling some patient records and looking at if we were under those caps, how it would have impacted our reimbursement in physical therapy right now. And what we found is that for the most part, there were a few patients, I think, we would have hit the cap number. Based on their methodology of the way we interpret their rulings.
I pulled the 5 patients that I've kept the longest, had the biggest charges on in 2012. And I added up their total charges over the months that I saw them. If we were reimbursed like everybody else that's not critical access is reimbursed, I wouldn't have hit the cap on any of the patients. Because we're critical access, I would hit that cap on probably every patient I saw. So I don't see how Medicare can impose that on us. At the price that we charge per unit, say each patient, I keep them an hour usually, 4 units, that gives them less than 10 visits before they reach that cap. And that's their Medicare allowable per year.
How many visits?
Less than 10.
Okay.
And we'll reach that cap, and they can't expect any department to survive on that. I mean, therapists. So there's going to be some exceptions. We don't know what the final is going to be on that.
That's really what we need to see.
Yeah, we're kind of looking to see what the ruling is.
Do we know when we're going to get that ruling?
It's got to be soon.
It has to be. There's just no way of not doing it.
If we're just finding this out, everything through December was this isn't going to apply to critical access. Now here we are mid-January and they're saying, oh no, it is. Well, I've seen some patients already 10 visits this month. And so we've got to have a ruling really quick to see how it's going to affect us.
I think we're almost going to have to wait for the ruling before we know what to do.
Where did the ruling come from?
CMS. The other thing is I pulled some numbers after you and I talked. And I don't know, there's been a switch over the last year in the population of patients I'm seeing. When I started out, we were Medicare. I pulled the last 4 months of patients, and we're hitting right at a third Medicare now. Third-party insurances have taken over. My kids, workers out in the community. This January, we have 36% of my patients are Medicare. December was 26%. November was 24%. October was 38%. So, and that's been the trend over the last year. So it's not going to be as dramatic of an impact on my department because Medicare is only making up a third, roughly, at this point.
Yeah.
Now, that's going to switch. You know, it's going to fluctuate month to month. But anyway, it's not going to be as drastic. And like I said, I don't see CMS being able to impose the same financial payments on us that they do.
That's the one department I think we've got in the hospital where the Medicare utilization is not 70 to 80%.
Well, I think that's something that, I mean, it's nothing on the agenda that we can do anything.
Oh, no, I mean, I
but
wanted
that's
to keep
something
y'all
that
informed about it.
you're probably going to have to make the ultimate decision. I mean, it's going to be, I don't even know if that's a board decision.
No, but I like keeping y'all
Right.
informed. I mean, I don't.
But I mean,
I'd rather give y'all
I think
2 months.
ultimately what needs to happen is when you get the rulings and find out if it's going to affect, you know, the finances in a big, you know, way.
Okay.
But I think that's ultimately going to be your decision.
I understand. Thank you.
My other,
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm sorry, I don't
pleading my
cut you.
case one more time for more space.
Yeah, we'd like to have that money to play
I
with
know.
space.
We're on top of each other.
And I
I
think
could
we
go
all
on and
understand
on.
that, Tammy, but until we get our finances, we get all of our stuff collected, and we get things where we've got money coming in. I paid a bill for, one of my clients this week that he just got, it was in August, you know. If we're 5 months behind on current stuff, and we're still behind on old stuff, and we don't have all that money coming in, and we're still trying to cover the ambulance and cover the nursing home, a big capital improvement is gonna have to happen, my personal opinion, until we get to a point where we really know where we are. Because that'd be like jumping off a cliff right now. And we understand it.
We have to know what this Obamacare is gonna do.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that could kill us.
Yeah, but we still need to know, like you said, about things from,
We still need to get
months
collecting
ago.
money too.
Yeah.
so
We need to get to the point where we're not, which I don't think we really, did we take any money out of, this time?
December 11th, I think, was the last
Which is
one.
good, but we've gotta get to the point
And,
where
you
we're
know,
not
the
bleeding.
collections we've had since that
Mm.
point have been the older collections, not very little of that is, like you say, it's,
Right.
we're going to current, it's the old stuff we're getting back in. Well, with the admissions we've had and everything else, there's
And we've
quite a
got
bit
to
of money
have
there
the
that should
patience
be.
because they're not getting their bill in a timely manner, you know.
I
5
did
months is
talk
too
to them
long.
about that, and that we will see improvement, it's not an overnight fix, it's.
Cause I just can't see us just keep getting behind and behind on current stuff. You know, it looks to me like that ought to be
I
something.
know 5
that
months sounds awful, but you go, 3 months ago, we were 7 months out.
Well, true,
And
but
it's
still.
getting better, but
But
it's a
it's
slow process.
aggravating
To the general
so-called
public.
customers. I mean, they are our customers. It's aggravating to them to get something
I
from
understand that.
even 3 months ago.
But
Well, they've
back
already
to-
forgot about it.
Well, back to Tammy's situation, we all understand the situation, but I don't think any of us are willing to jump off that right now till, the hospital has gotta be more stable. I mean, we gotta get everything, I mean, we don't even have a good general ledger, we don't even really have a good budget. You know, we really need to know where we are financially before we spend a large amount of money, and that's gonna be a large amount of money, you know? But it's not that we've forgotten you, it's just that this other stuff the money's gotta come in, you know, we've got to get to the point where we're not taking money out of reserve and we're kinda standing on our own 2 feet, and I think it's getting better. But,
I did forget to add one thing to my administrative report as far as the general ledger part of that is concerned. Since we have the expense and the accounts payable stuff flowing into the income and operating statements properly now, I was able to talk to Mr. Strachey. Deborah put me in touch with him. He looked into it a little bit. Right now, all we lack on me being able to give you a complete operating statement on each facility and each department is getting the revenues flowing to that statement properly. He's looked into it. We have 2 issues there. He thinks that we can get corrected over the next month. I'm saying that you will have those statements at the next board meeting at this time, and it's that close to getting corrected.
anything, Miss Tammy?
That's it.
Yeah, good, thank you.
So,
Thank you, Tammy.
Okay. Jennifer, do you have?
I do, quickly, I'm gonna come up here so
How
I
did
don't
I
feel
have
like I'm
my
yelling
part?
at y'all. There were a couple of things that Andy and I have discussed just over the last couple of days. As most of you know, I've been out for the last few weeks. I really just am getting back into full-time starting last week. One of the issues that he and I discussed was the fact that our licensing is coming up for renewal in April. That is our relicensure with the state. And I quickly spoke to Gary Griffith, who is the person that oversees our area. He's the licensing person for DSHS in this entire area, the big country. And I have good news and bad news as far as getting the hospital's name off of the license. At this point, we are licensed as Stonewall Memorial Hospital, doing business as Stonewall County Ambulance Service. And it's been that way for years and years. Why it was ever licensed that way, I don't know. But, basically, Andy said, we need to get the hospital's name off the license. Because at this point, the hospital is on the hook for anything that comes up with EMS. In the eyes of the state, we are declaring ourselves as a hospital-based service. It changes, the liabilities, it changes the legalities, it changes things even as far as our billing goes. We can bill differently if we're not viewed as a hospital-based service. Our reimbursement rate will go up if we're not viewed as a hospital-based service.
How do we change it?
That's where the bad news comes in. It's going to be not as in-depth as we were afraid in the sense of having to get attorneys and go through a legal process. I can do it and we can change it. We are in a serious time crunch at this point because we're up for relicensure in April and everything has to be turned in by February 1st. Everything has to be into the state by February 1st for them to get everything processed. Gary's, and I spoke to several different EMS directors that have been doing this a very long time at the RAC meeting today. The question is going to come in that our EMS answers to the hospital board and is under the administration of the hospital. So there's some question there about whether or not that truly makes us hospital-based.
So there actually needs to be a ambulance board.
There needs to be an ambulance board. If the hospital does not want to accept the liability of the ambulance.
Needs to accept the liability.
Because I'm afraid, and I haven't gotten any information on this, Andy, because I'm just finding out about this 2 hours ago. As far as CMS is concerned, I'm afraid they're going to view it the same way.
Oh, no.
And
so basically what needs to happen is it's going to have to form another ambulance board with the other entities.
And it's going to have to happen very quickly.
So y'all might want to work on that tomorrow.
It would have been nice to have known Monday before we met the commissioners.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And I apologize, I had no idea that it was going to be, the issue, in the past, the relicensure had not had to be turned in that far in advance. The state has, within the last year, gone over to a completely computerized system. No paper actually gets sent to the state. Everything is sent either on a disk or emailed. And they're finding that that is not as streamlined as they hoped it would be, and they're having some issue with that. So now they're asking everybody to get everything in a couple of months in advance so they have a longer period of time to work on it.
Well, tomorrow y'all probably ought to contact the other entities, and they may have to have an emergency meeting.
Well, the city already is about the subsidy issue, but
that won't be on their agenda.
right. You're correct.
Okay.
I'll get in touch with
And the other quick thing, the
Last night, didn't it?
yes,
city met last night, county commissioners.
met
Monday
Monday
morning.
morning.
What's your other thing?
The other thing, the EMS county money, the money that we'll get from the RAC, we'll fund in April.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Passman, you have any medical concerns you would like to discuss? Is your world running smoothly?
No, yeah, I mean, I think everything, there's so many, just like you guys, there's so many issues to deal with. It's hard to pick the one that's at the forefront, but I think that, as far as medically, I think we're doing a lot better. We've got patients on the floor. I'm getting happier with the way we're dealing with patients in the emergency department. I'm getting comfortable with the nursing homes. I've seen all my patients now and done H&Ps on them. So
Do you have your records online?
we have the electronic health records in clinic. Yes, that should be fully implemented very quickly. We just have to get some templates and use those. But, your frustration is my frustration about the cash flow issue. It's like, working my butt off. I would hope we would start seeing some results. because there's still a lot of needs.
Do you have room to put your patients in?
Yes, yes, we haven't run into that crunch yet, but I'm sure it will be someday.
How many patient rooms do you have?
11.
Well, 11, I thought it was 10. we don't even know. I know we have 7 in active use.
That's what I mean,
Yeah.
how many we actually use?
Yeah, we have 7
Well,
that we have.
As long as you can convert a patient room in 30 minutes, then that's still considered a patient room.
Okay, Dr. Dawson, you have anything else? Okay. The, hospital accounts payable and receivable reports. Do I have any questions? I was just glad to see we hadn't, made the reserve.
I did get an expected payment report about 10 minutes before I came up here. It looks like we're going to be about 120,000 this next 5 days coming in too. So, like I said, it's getting better. Not where it needs to be, but it is getting better.
Who's gonna handle what Guy's doing now if he leaves? We got somebody lined up for that.
They're working on that.
Talked to several people. Nobody's sure.
Any questions on the payables? So this is the, it's kind of transfer money, the 13th of December.
Is Dr. McSmith gonna continue to?
Yeah, we have, I believe it's, you mean the medical director at the nursing home? Is that what you're talking about?
There and, working at the hospital also.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, he's preceptary. We have to keep him on that. Now, his medical directorship agreement is up, when did Dylan leave? May? His medical directorship agreement's up in May, and then Rick, we will no longer have that to him. Rick will be the sole medical director. Dr. Johnson's is up in June, I believe.
And Dr. McSmith has to be the one that's preceptor.
Well, whenever Rick's out of town, he's the only one we've got preceptor.
Any questions about the check register or anything?
Anybody else have any questions on what we paid? Okay, let's talk about the ambulance payables. How did the city respond to your request for more money?
All county and city approved. County went on ahead, they had it on their agenda for discussion and action, and they approved it. So they're going up to 3,500 in February.
Oh, no, they paid the 3,500 in January.
Oh, they did? They went ahead and paid the, I was anticipating they got ahead of us there.
Mm-hmm.
The city councilman did approve it, but they did not have it as an action point on their agenda, so they're calling a special call meeting to increase theirs, so.
When are they doing that?
Ralph didn't tell me.
You might call him.
They're having a meeting on the 29th.
You might call and see if you can get that other thing on that agenda.
I will.
But the 29th really won't be soon enough.
No, that's gotta be in by the
First.
Well, we can proceed, and I'll talk to him about it tomorrow and see about it. But they did indicate that they would, Sonny was gonna have to rework their budget a little bit to transfer some money around to increase it. Both entities did ask me that we give them an update in July because they're on the same fiscal year cycle we are.
Mm-hmm.
That way they could prepare their next year's budget, but they will adjust this year's budget up to that.
Even if we had all that money, we'd still be in the hole.
Yeah, I looked over that, it's Jennifer's understanding this is just something we're gonna have to work with. I wasn't comfortable asking them to go, I wasn't really comfortable asking them for that much, but.
What was the, money that she was talking about coming in while ago? What is the dollar?
Oh, there's the RAC, every year, if you're in compliance with the
Yeah.
RAC program, every rural county EMS gets $15,000 from that RAC.
It's between 10 and 15. It depends on how much the state funds every year. It varies, but it should be close to that.
Because we are now in compliance with the RAC, we will get that money this year. In the past, we never got it.
And where are we at with the billing on the ambulance?
We were gonna start taking that over February the 1st. And
Well, it's, will the ambulance take it over?
yes, Jennifer will be responsible for billing.
So all this,
ambulance.
there's a lot of stuff needs to be done between now and February 1st.
But that would be, the exact, but the taking over the billing would be something we would do regardless of
Right.
anything. It's just something we have to do. It's just no way around it. We've gotta save that $6,000 to $7,000 a year.
And that's gonna be done in the ambulance office?
Yes.
So,
It's not gonna come back to somebody in the hospital having to do part of that, or?
No. We're not gonna get involved with that.
okay, the next item on here is that monthly subsidy amount, which we kind of talked about, but we have to vote on that.
Yes, you do.
So, the amount that we're raising it to is it $3,500
$3,500.
a month. And, so the county's already approved it, the city's gonna meet on it, and so,
I know that we up our subsidies to the ambulance. I guess because it has to be done, not necessarily because we have the money.
sure. Okay, we have, Marvin made the motion, Sandy seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
It goes up to
3,500. Okay, the district policy, to rescind the district policy to not accept Medicare Advantage replacement plans. You know, in the past, we voted not to accept them, but now so many people, the school's gone to them, who else?
The schools, the retired teachers, state employees, retired state employees, and just like I suspected, many people.
Is this like Humana?
Yes, that's exactly
Okay,
what we're talking
because
about.
I've had two people tell me they've got Humana, and they have to drive to Hamlin to the doctor because we don't accept it here.
Exactly.
And I told one of them today, well, we're gonna start accepting it, I think.
There's just so many county, you know, they set up the booths, the tables at Walmart, just like they said they would. I think,
Now, how's this going to affect us financially?
okay, the impact on the actual reimbursements this year will be no impact. Where the replacement policies just really are bad for us is on the cost report next year. Because you're removing these Medicare replacement patients from our Medicare utilization row on the cost report. So instead of running 80% Medicare utilization like we have, say if 10% of our Medicare patients have this, now we're at 70%.
What are they considered? Are they considered commercial?
That moves them, just like they had Blue Cross Blue Shield at First Care. It removes them from our Medicare utilization. To offset that, like Aetna, I was just talking to their representative the other day about it. They are agreeing, Aetna is, to pay us 112% of our Medicare per diem rates on inpatient and outpatient procedures. Now, it sounds like, you know, we're getting a bump, like it currently, I think our per diem on an acute care inpatient day is $3,000, a little over. Well, they'll start paying us $3,400 a day. But the offset to that is we lose them on the cost report next year, and we're at 12% over, we're probably recouping about half of that.
But that's just
benefit.
Aetna.
That's just Aetna. Blue Cross Blue Shield has a standard deal, they're doing 108%.
What about Humana?
Humana doesn't have a bump agreement in there. It's something we're gonna have to work. United is by far the hardest company to deal with. But like I said, it's kind of where we're at with all these different county residents being on that now, and so many of them. There's a lot of people signed up in it now that are just now finding out that's actually what they did. They didn't understand that they were signing a Medicare Advantage agreement. They thought they were changing their supplemental insurance at the time.
And they weren't told what they were doing.
And they weren't
That's
told
the
what they
problem.
were signing.
What if they didn't, what if somebody with that didn't go to this Medicare Advantage replacement deal?
It stays the same. We stay on, you mean like they have a supplement without the replacement? It works the same as it always has historically for us. They're on our cost report. But right now, every Medicare, I mean, I think we run into this with one patient who was wanting to go into swing bed. Their primary care was the retired teacher's Medicare replacement, and then they had a supplement through First Care, I believe, on top of that. Well, because they had the Aetna thing, well, now we have a snowball. We couldn't take it, so they're over in Rotan and swing bed.
From what I understand, the school has an option, the people, individuals have an option to go or not go with this.
They did.
I was talking to one person today, and they, he was getting in, just now getting in. And, there's several people in the school system said, oh, don't take that, because they won't take it up here. So I don't know if everybody up there's got it, or they don't have it, or.
What is the benefit to the patient to have the Medicare replacement policy? Is there a benefit?
Yeah, it does. It saves them about $120, $140 a month over what their supplement policy costs. They can get their supplemental insurance a lot cheaper through one of these.
So do they have
is a
Humana, or let's say they have the replacement policy, do they also have a supplemental policy too?
Yeah, that's part of the replacement deal, and they'll charge them like $130 a month for that, where like my mother who has a separate
The supplement and Medicare.
Supplement and Medicare, well, hers runs about $250 a month now, with her Part B and everything else. Well, they lump it all in under these replacement policies, and like I said, there's about $120, $130.
Which is $230 or $40, I'm not sure right off the bat what it is.
So that's where the hook is. They look at it and they think, well, I'm paying $250 a month for my supplement now. If I go with this, it's now $120.
Right.
Yeah, they're better off.
That's what they're told, and see,
Yeah.
what they're also not told, Humana and Walmart have a humongous contract, and think about how much money Walmart has and how powerful they are.
Well, and
That's how
Walmart
come
is
Humana
fixing
can
to
do
start
that.
their own health care, I heard.
But that's how come.
The good thing about it is when y'all implemented this policy years ago, it was a bunch of mostly fly-by-night insurance companies offering these replacement plans, and literally you could go 9 months receiving your payment. Now, I'm sure that was part of the argument to do away with it. But now that you've got Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Humana, United, your revenue cycle is, 60 to 90 days instead of 6 to 8 months. So
We need what do y'all want to do?
I would make a motion that we rescind that policy. I really don't see where we have a choice.
Okay, so Sandy's made the motion, have a second. Buddy seconds it. Any more discussion on it? Are you in deep thought?
Yeah, I am, because I don't fully understand it.
well, it's hard for me to give you a real accurate estimate of what it'll cost us until we actually see how many of.
Till you see next year's cost report.
Till the next year, see
I'm on
next
that
year's cost report.
With Brenda, I'm a retired teacher.
Yeah.
She's on Medicare and has Aetna, and I believe she chose not to go for this Medicare Advantage replacement.
Tell her if I said thank you. I appreciate
Well, that's why we did it, because they wasn't gonna take it.
Right.
Now I don't know what we should do now, change it?
Well, you're already enrolled now, your enrollment period is over. It's,
You can't change it.
you can change it in
You can't
November.
change it for a year now.
Until the next
Don't
enrollment.
we have the next one?
And I'm just on that up here, but I'm gonna be on Medicare and this year.
That's really, yeah, the enrollment period's over. Now, November of next year, you will be able to enroll.
But since we're rescinding this, it would be better for the individual than if they were on.
They,
Save
they,
you some money.
Huh.
It would save you some money. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Okay, carried. Okay, now the PTO policy, buyback policy. You have to sign, you have to sign this?
I've got a copy to sign over here for you when we get done this
Okay.
evening. I didn't put the signature part on that one, so.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, it does?
We all have one
Okay.
like that.
Is it
Oh,
signed?
now, on that one.
Oh, but it's
Yeah, it's the
numbered.
PTO one I didn't have.
You got one that's not numbered?
On that one, probably not.
You got one out.
I can go get some.
I have some here. Do we want to use it on a policy? Probably not. I can come by the hospital and sign it on Friday. Okay. PTO thing.
It's number 13.
Okay.
I had some very well-respected employees came to me and.
Aren't they all well respected?
Oh, well, so they came to me in the right manner. Okay, listen. And they have some legitimate concerns about this. And the one that, one point, I think I put the other options there. One person felt like we shouldn't change anything, just leave it like it is. Then in the other case, on the 2 buyback periods per year, they felt like the allowable cash-in should be at 100 hours per buyback period, which I think is, honestly, in my opinion, is still a little bit too much. The second buyback period, their objection was they would like it at the first week of November or December instead of the first week of November. I have no issue with that
What's
whatsoever.
the first buyback period?
First week of April, right before tax season hits for people. But the biggest is in the case of a personal emergency, and this argument was pointed out that they felt like that should be a process that goes through me first, and that the board be a last line of appeal.
If you denied it.
If I denied it, and maybe not even me, but maybe a 3-person committee within the hospital that we review that. Say if they needed money in June or July before a buyback period and they had a legitimate emergency for it. I can understand that because in this forum, bringing your personal business to the public, I could see where that could make someone very uncomfortable, and I didn't think about that when I was going through the policy changes. It's
Well, I don't
something
really
that,
think the board ought to make that decision on whether.
well, and that was another argument too, was that
Even
this
in an
may not
executive
be.
session, he can still get out, and I don't blame the employees for that.
I don't
at all.
either, because there's some
really
things
don't.
that happen that you don't
That's none of our
want.
business if they're.
So I can agree with that. I mean, after I got to thinking about it afterwards, I thought, they're right. This is
If we set a
something.
policy and a limit.
And my point is, that if we limit the buyback periods to say at 50 hours per period, you've still got the application process to come through if that's not enough.
That needs to be done because.
And this doesn't totally, but it gives us in times where things are real tight, it gives me the ability to control the expenses a little bit. It doesn't really deny them a point at any
The
time of
employees
year.
don't understand the large payout on PTO time, the way it affects the hospital
could be.
finances.
And just
We
that.
don't even have a budget to speak of, you know, it could be a major.
And it could, and like I said, this doesn't deny them access to it in case of an emergency. It makes them take an extra step rather than just handing us a slip of paper saying, I want to cash in.
Well, I've never seen a company that had PTO time like this anyway.
I couldn't find one anywhere, guys.
How many
awful
employees,
generous.
how many employers have that?
You know, most places where you work, you get your
Vacation
holidays
time.
Well,
and your
most
vacation
places
time.
have different types of leave as opposed to this, which is one, and I mean, in a way, it's easier. You have this many hours. They're not divided into sick time or vacation. This is what you got, and this is all you got.
But most places you can't accrue this many
Oh, I
hours
know,
either.
but
you
most
know.
places have it categorized, whereas the hospital, that's it. It's just.
Well, what difference would that make? Now, this was
Oh,
brought up by George one time, you know, that this company had so many days of vacation, and this one sick leave, and this one. Same amount of hours, we
Right.
just don't designate it.
Well, it doesn't matter to me, but
I
what
can't
I'm
see why
saying
it
is
would.
most companies don't let you accrue
No.
this much time.
And
you
they'll
know.
also, you'll lose them.
Yes.
If you don't take them, you don't come up with 200 or 300 hours. If this year you take them or you lose them.
I've worked for a lot of big companies, I would have loved to have this
Sure.
policy.
Oh, yeah, and it's a corner. I mean, as an employee, I mean, I'm like, oh, yeah, give it. You know, great, but
How many hours are we gonna give them?
What's your recommendation?
my original recommendation was 40 to 50 at their own total discretion without having to do an application process during those 2 periods. If it's outside of those 2 periods or they want more than that, they have to go through the application and approval process. Now, that process, I can understand not wanting to bring that into this form, and
Well,
I
let me
have
ask
no
you a
problem.
question. What happens if every single employee decides they want all their PTO time in the first week of April?
That's 190.
Well, they're limited to 50 hours.
Yeah, but you're talking about a lot of employees.
That's true. I understand.
But there's
But-
no way you can say 5 people can do it
I
here, and
know.
you can't do that.
But what I'm talking about is,
Well, right now, we're only doing it at the end of the year anyway, that's what they're saying. I mean, I'd rather have it twice a year. than
well, right,
cash it in
I
instead of
understand that, I'm
doing
just
it.
saying, do we have that much extra cash to pay all this?
No.
No, but you gotta remember, out of the 102 employees, I think we have maybe 23 or 24 that would be eligible to cash in something that would be,
There's a lot of them that don't
yeah, there's a lot that,
much.
we're talking about 25 to 30% of the employees that would
Okay,
have the
April and
ability to
when
do
are you
something.
wanting to buy
First
it
week
back?
of December, right? First week of April?
Yeah,
first
I
week
mean,
of
I have no problem with the first week of December instead of the first week of November. I was trying to spread them 6 months apart, well, let's put it that way.
Now, if an employee has,
Now, I have no objections to the termination of if you're at fault, you know, and I put the case law there in it with it, I guess, whenever y'all are reading that, but, if you are terminated with cause, that you forfeit your PTO accrual. I mean,
Or
that's
if you quit
standard
without
practice. Or if you quit
notice.
without giving us notice. If you retire, and you have a big accrual, it will be paid to you fully, but it will be paid based upon an 80-hour per pay period. You'll keep receiving your paycheck until the accrual is exhausted. That just eliminates one huge lump sum payment.
Okay.
Now, they could get paid for 3 months after they actually leave our service, but they're getting their
But it's
time.
still like they're getting their paycheck.
Yeah, they're not getting, we're not just taking it away from them. So, this I felt like was the fairest way to do this and not take anything away from the employees. It does limit stuff a little bit, but
Well, basically what it does is it gives the hospital just a little
Gives
bit
you a
more
little bit more
control
control.
of your cash flow,
exactly.
which is my big worry. I don't wanna take anything away from the employees, I just wanna make sure cash flow wise, we're still okay.
So we need to determine how many hours tonight. You got 40 or 50.
So this
that-
basically is your policy right here.
Yeah, except for the change, I mean, I would like, y'all's input on what the limit would be on each of the discretionary buyback periods,
As far as number of
and then
hours.
the appeals process for emergency situations.
I think that we definitely need that.
I don't have a problem with the 50.
Talk out loud.
Mhm.
Keep it simple, stupid for Steve method, it's 740, that's a week's pay,
40 hours.
40 hours, you cash in for a week's pay. After, you're gonna get paid, on payday, you're gonna get the 2 weeks pay you've earned, and you can get another week's pay in vacation, limited 40. Just makes the numbers easier.
Okay.
That's just-
For 40, if that's what everybody wants, then get to the point.
How do you accrue it though?
So the accruals,
Very work.
the only change in the accrual was that an employee there for the first 2 years would be accruing at a rate that would give them 18 days per year instead of the rate that gives them 26 days, I think.
For 26 days,
Um,
3 to 5.
Yeah.
21 days.
Three
Is
to,
that 10 hours, point, is that 10 hours?
yeah, well, it's .10, it's 8 hours per 80-hour work week is the way it accrues.
Okay, in parentheses, you have 0.10, comma, 26 days.
Yeah, in a year, you would accumulate 26 days.
What is the .10?
It's 10%. I mean,
Okay.
like I said, you work 80 hours, you accrue 8 hours of PTO.
Okay.
So in other words, if you've been here 3 to 5 years, you're gonna get a little over 3 weeks off.
Right. That's
Which
the
is
current
basically
policy.
like a 3-week
That's
vacation that
the-
you've earned.
Well, but you also,
Well, that includes
Christmas holiday,
Christmas Day.
Thanksgiving, if you take those days off, then,
Sick days, personal days.
Right.
then.
Well, it's sick, it's vacation, it's
Right.
holiday, it's everything. Okay, so,
You can sell 2 of those weeks back. By this new plan, you can sell 2 weeks back and you still have a week off.
well, I think that it should have in there that, you know, you make the decision if they went over the 40 hours. That goes to you. If you deny it, it has to come to the board, that's one thing, but that needs to be stated in there that that's your decision.
Reword it to that.
Would they rather have you or a committee in-house to do that? What's your opinion on that, Andy?
I would like to have a 3-person committee within there. Maybe it's me, Deborah, and maybe Steve. I mean, just the 3 administrators. We look at where we're setting financially and.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I think it needs to be more than one person, because that could,
That's a lot of pressure.
well, yeah, but it's setting up for too many
Well, it also
personal
brings
issues
in the
and-
nursing home into
They
the,
may be my people too.
right.
So I would prefer it that way. But,
Okay.
and again, I'm not, and I know it sounds like to maybe the employees sitting here that we're taking something away from them, but we're really not. We're just implementing a little bit of control. I mean, if you want to apply to, say you need 150 hours cashed in, you can do that at any time and apply for it. It's just you have to go through a process where we think we can afford to do it. And maybe we say, well, look, can you get by with 70? Depending on what our economic situation is at the time, but we don't have this automatic, you know.
Well,
turn
a
in.
lot of the employees may not fully understand the cash flow situation at the hospitals and in all of the problems that we've had with collecting and billing and, they don't always look at that, you know. And I think a lot of them would just soon maybe get 1 week and still have a job. You know, till we get things kind of lined out.
Do we put is there a cap on how many?
How many hours can they accumulate?
Right, I mean, like,
Oh, the
You know, you have
accumulation's
37
allowed
days
up to
for
380 hours still.
380 hours.
That's 3 months. 3, 4, or is it 4? Oh, is it 480?
that's a lot. I would think,
Yeah.
I mean, can we,
See, that's what scares me about the whole thing.
I mean, I can understand paying, I mean, again, like I said, when I quit the sheriff's office, I got paid from March to June. But, you know, I mean, how long are we gonna keep them going? You know, is there a cutoff? Do we need to have a cutoff on
See, like,
that?
okay, like the county, I think they can only accumulate 2 weeks. What is that, 160 hours?
Well, that'd be 80.
Yeah, 80 hours.
The military only gives you a month.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been paying everybody for a long time, we keep letting them,
Yeah,
we need to work a
go
deal
and
where we
it's
have to say, if you
41,000.
don't use it X amount of months, of course, like I said, I use every vacation period I got. I like taking time
It's
off.
almost like they're using that as a savings account.
Well, that's exactly what it is.
That's,
That's just, I mean, that kind of holds us over the fire.
that's a little
Because we
bit.
can't hire anybody else,
I
we're
don't
just gonna pay this person.
agree with that, forcing people to take it because
I do,
from
I do.
Not forcing it, but lose it.
personal experience, you may not work in an apartment where you can take off and keep your
That
job
does
done.
happen.
And it happens, and I've been there, and so I don't agree with forcing people to take time off. If you can't and keep your job done, you should not be forced to take
Well, then
time off.
we should maybe
Because
find-
pressure is gonna come on you, well, why didn't you get your job done? Well, I had to take
Well,
these
then every
days off.
every person out there ought to have somebody that can do their job when they're not there.
I agree on that. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
that's what we
that
need,
doesn't
that's, I guess that's the ideal world of what you're doing. I mean, that's me, it's like, because you should not have to work knowing that you never get a time off.
We should not have a single employee out there that cannot take time off. And if we do, then we need to fix it.
It's like not being able to be replaced.
Well, I mean, if you got an employee that can't take time off, what happens if that employee gets deathly ill and has to be in the hospital? You know, somebody out there
People
needs.
just deserve to have time off, whether they're sick or not.
Well, I agree, but I mean, we're sitting here talking about not being able to take time off. What do we do if we have an employee out there that can't get to work because they are sick? I mean,
Well, it's happened this week with our radiologist.
um, so what do y'all want to do on this?
I think y'all need to consider too that you're competing for these nurses and people can, everybody in the local area is competing for the same people, so keeping your policy in line with,
I bet our policy's a lot more liberal than.
Oh, yes, it's, even with the changes, it's still by far.
But this,
So let me make sure,
Why do you
so
say
you're
it's
saying
not?
let's do the,
Do I wanna know?
Well, yeah, that's why we're here.
Okay.
I mean, I'm curious.
Because
to know-
you're looking at time that is accrued by the employee. The employee actually earns that time. They're not given that time the minute they walk in the door.
Right.
And so because they earn it, then it is my belief that they should have the discretion to use that time as they need to.
Right.
Or as they're able to on an adult
I have a
situation.
clarification here though. I'm not asking that you say you can use it how you wanna use it. I'm not putting a limit on that.
You have that.
What I'm wanting to limit is how much of it you're gonna force me to buy back from you.
And see, I don't think that anyone should be able to sell their time. I'm that hard about it. I don't think anybody should sell their
See,
time.
I don't think you should be able to accrue that many days.
Well, I can understand accruing that many days because one, many of the companies that I have been with before, you have sick leave. And sick leave, you can accrue a number of hours of sick leave. Here, we don't have sick leave. We have just a lump sum of time that people as adults are supposed to try to use throughout the year. I don't believe in selling time
What do you
for a
think
number of
of-
reasons.
You think we ought to come in with designations on, this is your, you get a vacation, you get sick leave, you get, pay, all this kind of stuff? Do you
Not
think-
at all.
Would that make any difference?
Not at all. I think
Not at
that
all.
people are adults and you should be able to earn your time and then use your time as need be. I do believe in putting a cap on it. I mean, you can get absolutely ridiculous with it. There should be a cap. But to have an employee be able to sell back time, I have a real problem with that because you are selling back, or you're buying time. And it's double jeopardy because they're working at the same time that they are being paid for.
Well, as far as being earned, I have a little problem with that. To me, PTO is a gift. You get paid for the hours you work. That's what you earn.
A lot of places don't have sick pay, and
No.
I have never worked anywhere where you could buy it back, ever.
I got 2 weeks vacation is the best job I ever had. If I was off, I didn't get paid. Well, that's my fault, that's my problem. This is a great deal for the employees, I think.
Sure.
So, you know, let's don't call it earned, let's call it a gift, as far as you wanna look at it that way.
Well, sick leave normally, for the people that do get sick leave on the job, and I don't know, does anybody know what they normally get for sick leave?
Usually 1 day a month, at least like an office, it's 1 day a month.
Yeah, 8
Okay,
hours
that's
a
12
month.
days a year.
And a lot of places, if they have the two different types of leave, sick leave and vacation leave, if you leave and you have a whole bunch of hours of sick leave, well, you lose that. Now, if you still have vacation time, sometimes you can get paid for that when you leave a job, but most of the time with sick leave, if you don't use it, you don't use it and you don't get it when you leave. So,
Well, a lot of times it's null and void after the end of the year.
yeah.
If you don't use your sick leave, that's gone.
Well, now, some places you can actually carry forward so
Depends on where
much.
you
Yeah,
go to work.
only so much, the
Right.
rest of it you lose, but you don't get to take it with you when you
But
change
if you
jobs.
get 2 weeks vacation a year, that's 80 hours. If you get 12 days sick leave a year, that's another 96, that's 176 hours.
See, most places
Plus
that I've
holidays.
ever worked, after you've been there so many years, you earn, say, after your first full year, you get a week's vacation. Then say after you've been there 3 or 4 years, you get 2 weeks.
Well,
And then,
every-
you know,
Every employee down there does not work on holidays, do they?
Yes, sir.
We do
I
now.
You mean,
I'm sorry,
you
no,
work
we-
Christmas Day?
No,
You didn't work every
I
holiday?
misspoke. We're told that we have to take holidays.
We were
off.
told we had to take off holidays,
well,
and I didn't agree with that.
I don't see why everybody would have to be there on Christmas Day. Did you work Christmas Day? I mean,
Well, I was just using
Well,
that for an example, that's a holiday.
But really, the whole thing is, we're trying to talk about whether we buy it back or not.
mhm.
That's what we're discussing now, not if the days are here or there, I guess. I'm the one that started this problem.
Well, but I think we were talking about how many
How much
hours
we're
you
gonna
could
buy
use.
back, how many hours can you accrue, and how much we're gonna buy back. That's what we're trying to save, try to salvage a budget, rather than have $195,000 hit us in the
Well,
face.
my
and
personal
everybody
opinion
turns
is
it
you
in.
should not be able to accumulate 480 hours.
Kinda ridiculous.
That might need to be addressed at a later time.
Huh?
When there's a cutoff.
Right.
Well, that's the PTO policy, this is just the buyback policy.
Yeah.
The PTO policy, which I do agree with you, but that's a different policy.
Okay, so let's just concentrate on what's here. We're gonna let them buy back 40 hours a week, 40 hours at a time unless it's an emergency. And then they have to go to the 3-person committee.
But do we have him, do we choose who the committee is? Do we?
Well, they've
or-
already,
Yeah,
I
these-
think these 3
Yeah,
ought
I
to
do
be the
too,
committee.
yeah. So,
Do you want that in a motion, or?
Well, yeah, we're
That's
just
what I'm
kinda getting
saying,
Yeah, I'm getting the wording
Yeah,
right. so
right.
we
getting
can-
the, I don't know who's gonna make
I was
this
trying to
motion,
ask Sandy about what she was, yeah, it needs to be.
those were the only real questions we had on the buyback, right?
Yeah, the amount of time at each buyback period, and then the, I guess,
Who makes
application
it?
process.
And it should
Yeah.
never come to the board unless it's denied by the committee. And that needs to be in there,
Yeah, I'll
'cause I
reword
don't
that
think the
for.
board needs to be involved.
And then the other significant changes in there, which no one really brought about, was the, how to handle the, retirement or termination with, if proper notice, and you're letting me know, and we work it
Well,
out.
if somebody quits without notice,
Without notice, it's
And
just
it
it already,
forfeited.
that's already set up.
and
in
if
the-
somebody is let go because of
Misconduct, they lose it.
misconduct or misconduct.
That's already stated.
Say if
in the
someone
policy.
retires, or someone comes to me and say,
But-
this, I've given you 30 days notice that I'm leaving, they stay out their 30-day term, we'll pay out their accrued
Right.
PTO over
Right.
the next few weeks instead of a lump sum payment. And that way, they earned it, they get to keep it, and that's,
And they were saying that they wanted to cash that in instead of getting it paid out over the 2 weeks or what?
they could apply to get it paid out lump sum, but.
I would think the application process is, it's just not. Even the result of the application process could be, we're only gonna pay you 80 hours, at a time, we'll pay you 3 times or something like that, is that correct? Is there any restrictions on the?
Y'all can make
What we
whatever
decide
decisions you
what
want
we
in
wanna
that
do.
part.
Alright, so they have to jump through some hoops to get it, but they can still get all of it, so. Go that way. Okay,
So we need a motion on this? Anybody willing to make the motion?
Trying to think.
Okay, buddy, say it.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, well, yeah, that was real hard, but.
What's it gonna say?
I've got that down to
Okay,
retype, so.
It's basically 40 hours at a
Yeah.
time.
Well, if you got it down, tell us before we vote on it.
Yeah.
Exactly, so we'll know what we're voting for.
Two employee discretion, buyback periods with no
First week
questions
of
asked.
April and the
First week of April, first week of December, limited to 40 hours. If in an emergency situation, or you want to apply for cashing in more than that, you appeal to a 3-person committee consisting of the 3 of us. And last point of appeal would be to the board.
And it would be an executive session appeal.
Yes,
Okay, that would.
It would need to be executive session.
Yes,
appeal.
definitely.
that's the motion on that.
Okay, Buddy made that.
Good job.
well said.
Would anybody like to second that motion?
Oh,
Sandy?
Please, Sandy.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion before we vote? Okay, all those in favor? Okay. Okay, then, the last thing on here is administrator evaluation, which I'm assuming, since I'm gonna yell at him, we probably need to go into executive session.
Do we have a form or anything?
I don't know, I asked Andy about that yesterday, and nobody offered to give me one, so. Is there a form that we need?
I think we've never had one. We talked about having one time or two.
I do have an employee evaluation form that we're going through this year on employees. but
I got it. Thank you.
I didn't
Does anybody else want a copy of my report?
Thank you. It was very good, and I appreciate your
Very
detail.
nice.
Well, I appreciate y'all having me, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes,
So,
we appreciate it. You're doing a good job.
anything I can do, just holler at me, I'm gonna pack up my.
Well, Linda, you'll have to
Are you
shut
staying
down.
for
We're going to
executive
executive
session?
session.